How could you nominate someone with allegations of child trafficking trafficking across state lines and having sex with a 17-year-old? My understanding, further on in the interview, they discussed the fact that once he finds out that she's 17, he stops having sex with her.
Hey, Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
That must have been a pretty bitter pill to swallow. It's kind of like we saw her taking in all of her pride in that one single moment where she paused. And you saw how fast they turned that around because it was a, quote, legal note. So I'm kind of thinking that mainstream liberal media will be on its toes whenever they try to lie on national television now. Because there will be a time when these people will be held accountable for their lies and their misinformation. And I really hope that this time comes soon, because it's crazy to think that we live in a world where you're just free to just accuse anybody of anything that you want. It's something that they did to President Trump a ton during the course of his presidential run. And now it's being applied to most of his cabinet members because they know for a fact that these people are here to work. Watch.
The President-elect Donald Trump absolutely has a constitutional right to nominate him, and the Senate has the role of advising consent. If there is one person they're going to block, I would guess it'd be Matt Gaetz. And I think the way they'll do it is they'll say, let's not make this your problem, Donald Trump. I'm just going to say the votes aren't there. Put someone else up who can get through. I think the most likely scenario would be it's the Deputy Attorney General he's appointed, his criminal defense attorney, Todd Blanche, who, whatever you think of him appointing as criminal defense attorney, he has the qualifications to be there. He's a former federal prosecutor. He worked for the Southern District of New York. But Matt Gaetz is a person of low moral character. This is widely known about him. And I'm kind of bullish he's not going to get through.
Yeah, you know, I think what we really need to think about is the position that he has been nominated for by this president elect. To be the Attorney General means that you're responsible for the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice is one of the largest law enforcement agencies in the world. And it's very serious business.
Just to let you guys know why Trump is picking Matt Gaetz, it's because he gets shit done. And if the DOJ actually did its job, then things might look completely different for Hunter Biden. Just look at what Matt Gaetz did with regards to this infamous laptop. Watch.
So where is it? The laptop.
Sir, I'm not here to talk about the laptop. I'm here to talk about the FBI cyber program.
You are the assistant director of FBI Cyber. I want to know where Hunter Biden's laptop is. Where is it?
Sir, I don't know that answer.
That is astonishing to me. Now, you're telling me right here is that as the assistant director of FBI Cyber, you don't know where this is after it was turned over to you 3 years ago.
Yes, sir, that's an accurate statement.
Let's tell you what, Mr. Chairman. I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record of this committee the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, which I'm in possession of.
You need to listen to it well, but you can actually hear some audible gasps as Gaetz says that he has the contents of Hunter's laptop. This is why Trump is not going to back down from his nomination. In fact, he was asked if he was reconsidering his pick for Gaetz for Attorney General. And just as Trump would, the president simply said no. And of course, we got to talk about how Republicans in the Senate are going to react to this. They have one of two options: agree with the president or commit political suicide. The American people are tired of this weaponization of government, especially within the Department of Justice and all these other branches. It's something that was blatantly exposed during this year's presidential election.
Attorney General, you've told us that it's a dangerous conspiracy theory to allege that the Department of Justice is communicating with these state and local prosecutions against Trump. You can clear it all up for us right now. Will the Department of Justice provide to the committee all documents, all correspondence between the department and Alvin Bragg's office and Fonnie Willis's office and Letitia James's office?
The offices you're referring to are independent offices of state.
I get that. The question is whether or not you will provide all of your documents and correspondence. That's the question. I don't need a history lesson.
If the people want results, and who are these officials in the Senate to deny them? And isn't it strange that the allegations against Gaetz got louder after Trump's nomination? Kind of funny how that works, right? And it's also worth noting that they've been investigating these allegations for more than 4 years. He's still a free man. the same way President-elect Trump is. Because the fact of the matter is that these allegations are nothing more than political distractions. And if they were serious about it and actually had hard evidence to prove it, then they would charge him. But that hasn't happened yet either. Which brings me to how Sunny Hostin is just struggling to understand why Matt Gaetz is even in a position to become Attorney General. Watch.
Well, statutory sex doesn't require you to know what age the person is. It only requires the age. And so if these things
So
are
wait a minute.
true...
So if you're having sex with an underage girl,
Yes.
she tells you she's 18,
Yes.
and you have it anyway, you're still liable.
Yes, you
Yeah,
are.
she's actually still only
It's
17.
statutory
Just to
rape.
clarify.
Yeah.
And so I'm deeply disturbed at the lack of judgment that we are already seeing from the president-elect.
But you're not
I'm not surprised, but I think a lot of people are. A lot of people said things like, he's just kidding. He would never do something
Well, this is
like
the
that.
best joke of all.
And
Just
that's
kidding.
not true.
Because
Even when he says
I'm
it.
crossing my fingers that this is going to be sweet justice.
Now, what boggles my mind is that Sunny Hostin seems to be so sure of what she's saying. Now, remember, guys, this is national television, and slander is still a form of oral defamation. Now, you'd have to think that these ladies are going to get sued one of these days, which I guess explains why ABC suddenly had a change of heart, because they've let these women go out for years and lie about people that they don't like. They've done it multiple times with Trump and most of his allies. Something that's probably going to stop because ABC basically told Sunny to fall in line. This happened within the halfway mark of this episode, and I know I showed it to you guys a little while ago, but it's just too good to just watch once.
Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. The DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
Now you gotta wonder what they told her to make her say that. We know for a fact that they despise Matt Gaetz. But if this DOJ didn't charge him after all this time, then why is Sunny Hostin acting as if he was already guilty? This is where the network took over, and it's probably a good thing that they had this legal note. Now, I'm guessing ABC is playing things safe since ratings aren't doing as hot as they used to.
The celebrity endorsement part is hilarious because it is true. Like, no one cares what some of these... We like their movies, we like their music, who they're voting for, not so important.
Do the celebrity endorsements make Democrats seem out of touch?
Yeah, I suspect if you're hanging out with, these celebrities, it's not the life I'm living. So yeah, sure, that feels different.
Well, the American people made it very clear. Hollywood, you're fired. Democrats, you're fired too. Now, as comedian Bill Maher said, it's time for Democrats to look in the mirror after that humiliating Kamala Harris loss. Watch.
To the losers, look in the mirror. No? Well, maybe you should. Sorry. Well, that's my feeling. Losers look in the mirror, okay? Yeah. I mean, for months, Democrats have been saying, how is this even close? And they're right, it wasn't.
Seriously, guys, it's been a week since Donald Trump declared victory over Kamala Harris in the 2024 presidential election. But what happened to all the celebrities that were supposedly endorsing Kamala Harris? Why aren't they saying anything? It's like radio silence, right? I mean, we're talking about A-list stars like Oprah Winfrey, Taylor Swift, Jennifer Lopez, George Clooney, Beyonce, Bruce Springsteen, Leonardo DiCaprio, even Arnold Schwarzenegger. You guys remember all that, right? But now it's just radio silence. Now, according to PR expert Doug Eldridge, had it been closer, you might have been hearing more fervent rebukes and calls to resist from the celebrity class. But the thing is, Trump dominated the Electoral College and he won the popular vote. The voters, which is a synonym for fans in this case, they spoke loud and clear. So now Eldridge is pretty much saying that these partisan celebs might have lost the election, but they cannot afford to isolate and lose their fans as well. But seriously, guys, it's like business as usual for these people. Oprah Winfrey spoke at the Democratic National Convention in August and appeared at Harris's final rally in Philadelphia on the eve of Election Day. Well, nothing. Meanwhile, Lopez, who spoke at Harris's rally in Las Vegas, has been busy promoting her film Unstoppable, and Taylor Swift, who publicly endorsed Kamala Harris in September, she was recently seen at her boyfriend Travis Kelce's NFL game. And nope, neither one of them have even publicly commented on the results. George Clooney said in a CNN interview that what President Biden did, withdrawing from the race, showed what true leadership is, and that they're all so excited to do whatever they can to support Vice President Harris in her historic quest. But nope, the Academy Award winner actor, he just, he's yet to share his thoughts on Trump's win. And remember Beyonce, guys? Everybody was expecting her to perform at a Harris rally in Houston on October 25th. Yay, free Beyonce concert, right? Better than Coachella. But again, nope, she said that she was not there as a celebrity and not there as a politician. She said that she was there as a mother. Well, too bad people weren't there to see Beyonce as a mother. You know what I mean, guys? She said no limitations for her daughters, but now she has yet to publicly comment post-election. Then, of course, there's Bruce Springsteen, the boss as he likes to call himself. Yeah, he admitted that his opinion is no more or less important than those of any of his fellow citizens. But then he goes out and says that he's supporting Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz for vice president, and he's also added that he's opposing Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Same with Arnold Schwarzenegger, former Republican governor of California. He said that he wanted to tune out, but he can't. Well, people wish that he would, because according to him, he will always be an American before I am a Republican. He then declared that he was voting for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Well, I'm glad California got rid of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Well, 70 million Americans made it pretty clear. They're Americans first before listening to people like the Terminator. And guess what, guys? Arnold has since posted on Instagram, but yeah, you've guessed it, he has yet to comment on election results. And the list just goes on and on and on, guys. Leonardo DiCaprio, he shared a video on Instagram endorsing Kamala Harris for president. Robert Downey Jr., along with his Avengers co-stars, urged people to vote Democrat ahead of the election. Mark Ruffalo, he even tried to make the cringe hashtag assemble for democracy. Ew. But yeah, guys, Fox News Digital has reached out to representatives for Winfrey, Lopez, Swift, Clooney, Beyonce, Springsteen, Downey Jr., DiCaprio, and Schwarzenegger. No comment from each and every one of them. I mean, are we really surprised here? Drop a good yes or no in the comments, guys. Hit the like button to show your support. We're about halfway through this Kamala Harris teardown, and you definitely do not want to miss what we have in store for you guys at the end, which is Kamala Harris's campaign asking for supporters for money to support her $20 million post-election debt. And there's one other piece that you probably haven't heard about. For real, guys, stay right there. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button. Totally appreciate you guys. And we're going to make sure that Kamala Harris and the deep state lose. All right, so let's get back. So while Hollywood is hiding from Kamala Harris's shame, pro-Trump supporters have just been flooding social media. Actress Roseanne Barr is a longtime and well-known supporter of Trump, and she's been active in Twitter conversations about the landslide win for the Republican nominee. Just recently, Roseanne Barr, she even responded to one post suggesting that she be the next U.S. press secretary. She said she will do it and tagged Trump's account @RealDonaldTrump. Rob Snyder posted a video of himself on Instagram singing Michael Jackson's Smile during a recent stand-up appearance and dedicated it to the Democratic Party. Oh, and Zachary Levi too. He responded to a fan's tweet about feeling vindicated after the election results. It was some beautiful words from the Shazam actor, so let me go ahead and share it with you guys. He said, honestly, I don't really feel vindication because I didn't need to win to know that I was fighting for what was right. Win or lose, I was going to follow the conviction and calling that God put in on me from the time that I was born. That said, I'm so incredibly grateful to and proud of every one of you who saw through all the noise and chose to vote for @RealDonaldTrump. There's still much work to be done though, and I won't stop fighting, ever. Now that's a real supporter right there, guys. Not like the fair weather celebrity endorsers Kamala Harris seems to have. What did that impersonator say again? Taylor Swift, Beyonce, where are you now? Kamala's all alone, drinking in her Democratic basement. She's probably hiding from the whopping $20 million debt that she still owes people from her campaign. President-elect Donald Trump recently brought it up on X. He said that Democrats who fought a hard and valiant fight in the 2020 presidential election, raising a record amount of money, didn't have lots of dollars left over. Moreover, according to Trump, now they're being squeezed by vendors and others. They're going to start having the collections agency calling them. He even called out for Republicans to do whatever they can to help them during this difficult period. He said that his party has a lot of money left over in that their biggest asset in the campaign was earned media, and that doesn't actually cost very much. I mean, can you believe it, guys? The Harris campaign outraised Trump with over $1 billion in less than 4 months since President Joe Biden was forced out of the race. And lo and behold, the vice president still managed to end up with her campaign $20 million in debt. That's Democrats for you guys. And now her campaign's at it again. The failed Democratic presidential hopeful is now asking for cash for the account through this fundraising platform, Act Blue, as vendors worry her campaign won't pay them for services already rendered. It's pretty jacked up. What they're telling their supporters quarters is that it's supposed to be for the down ballot Democrats pushing for a recount in their respective races. Sure, Bob. What they didn't tell people is that the money can also be used to pay off election-related expenses too. So far, from what we've gathered, only incumbent Pennsylvania Democratic Senator Bob Casey has officially launched a recount in his bid to overturn Republican challenger Dave McCormick's projected victory. Apparently, they're still holding out some kind of hope that outstanding provisional votes from members of the U.S. military and others in the deep blue Philadelphia will overcome McCormick's 36,000 vote advantage. In fact, the three-term senator's campaign is still blasting out fundraising emails and claiming that the race is not over. And get this, guys, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, in one of his final acts of defiance as the departing Senate leader, he took the unusual step of not inviting McCormick and apparent Democratic victor Ruben Gallego in Arizona's Senate race to Washington, D.C. for orientation session in the upper chamber this week. National Republican Senatorial Committee spokesman Philip Letsu, he blasted the move and said that instead of wasting millions of Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars on a doomed recount, Bob Casey must concede and Schumer must allow McCormick to attend Senate orientation. I mean, can you believe this, guys? Speaking of lies, this reminds me of a previous video that I did that you guys should definitely check out. We've been bombarded with propaganda that Trump shouldn't be welcomed back into the White House. And yet it was President Joe Biden who happily let him back in.
I know this panel doesn't agree with school choice, but I strongly do, and elections have consequences. I'm going to say it now, and I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. I don't think Donald Trump is just going to abolish the Department of Education. I think he's going to move to invest more in voucher systems, in education savings plans. And I personally, one of the things I agree on is I think school choice is important. I think that the money should follow the student. We also need to pay teachers more. We also need to have a GI Bill for teachers. But I don't think your wealth, your zip code should determine your outcome. We need a break from all of this because we don't know what these people are going to do yet. Like, they haven't even started.
The recipients of school voucher tax credits. I'm not making this up. This has been studied. In 2020, a 2020 study found that only about half of states with voucher programs require teachers to have a bachelor's degree, require teachers to have training, require teachers to have licensing, require participating in private schools.
If I may get in, just to make it a conversation.
But because I have children and because I looked at
public school. I believe you got to go to private school.
There is zero statistical significance.
You got to go to private school.
Because nobody can figure out what's being said here.
The drama on The View today reached a boiling point, and it's becoming painfully obvious that these hosts are not just disagreeing, but they're barely tolerating each other lately. The topic? Trump appointing Linda McMahon as Secretary of Education. The spark? Well, it's a debate about school vouchers that spiraled completely out of control. And instead of a civil conversation, what we got was a full-blown spectacle as Sunny Hostin and Alyssa Griffin, they clashed heads head on. Now, Alyssa, she had the audacity to fact-check Sunny on live television. And let me tell you guys, Sunny did not take that very well. In fact, she clapped back with all the fire and the fury that you would expect on The View. And it got so bad that Whoopi Goldberg had to step in and break it up. Now, honestly, guys, at this point, I think it seems like they're not even pretending to get along anymore. Now, if you guys thought that The View was about meaningful discussions, well, today's episode proved that it was more about drama, egos, and chaos than anything else. By the way, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for sharing these videos. Watch this.
In agencies, they are trying to run these people are inexperienced, they're ridiculous, they're incompetent, they won't get anything done, they might even fail to win confirmation. In other countries and at other times, when would-be authoritarians try to consolidate their power, they do so by placing fools and jesters into positions of extraordinary power. And he goes on to say the absurdity is a cloak. It's a way of covering up the fact that they are underestimated is a feature. The loyalty that they have to the strong man is really the thing. And so he is appointing all of these people that are woefully inadequate, woefully mediocre, cannot do this job because he wants to consolidate power as a fascist does. And we need to be very clear-eyed.
Sunny Host has got some nerve calling all of these Trump appointees woefully incompetent. And I mean, has she completely ignored who's currently in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's cabinet? I mean, this is unbelievable.
about, and not so much joke about these types of appointments, because he is doing this intentionally right in front of our faces.
So I'm honestly in wait and see mode. I'm kind of eating my popcorn, and I've said what I have to say about Donald Trump.
You made fetch happen.
Exactly. But I've said what I'm worried about Donald Trump, and I remain worried about the things that I said, but he does have a right to pick who he wants to. Dr. Oz, listen, it wouldn't have been my choice, but I think John Fetterman said it well. If Dr. Oz is about protecting and preserving Medicare and Medicaid, I'm voting for the dude. It's an administrative job. He's going to be surrounded by bureaucrats who know how to run and manage those things. And on the Linda McMahon event, I kind of have to defend her because she started what was a regional business, turned it into a multinational, multi-billion-dollar business. She was then small business administrator in the former Trump administration. She'd served in the Connecticut School Board, and I know a lot of this for only 2 years, I think. I know this panel doesn't agree with school choice, but I strongly do, and elections have consequences. I'm going to say it now, and I'll correct myself if I'm wrong. I don't think Donald Trump is just going to abolish the Department of Education. I think he's going to move to invest more in voucher systems, in education savings plans. And I personally, one of the things I agree on is I think school choice is important. I think that the money should follow the student. We also need to pay teachers more. We also need to have a GI Bill for teachers. But I don't think your wealth, your zip code should determine your outcome. We talk on this show all the time about education's the great equalizer. If you have a 4-year degree, you live 9 years longer in this country. That starts at pre-K. That starts in elementary
but everybody doesn't go to college. Everybody
no, and I agree. I don't think they need to. But I don't think we should make kids be victims of schools that are falling behind. And if she moves that direction, I'm willing to see if that works.
Well, just to get in here real quickly, as I'm listening, each time I come into work and there's a new headline of who he appointed, I'm like, when is this all going to stop? Because I'm so tired of having to read in to every damn department that he has to name someone for, because it's just, I can't be alone in thinking that we need a break from all of this, because we don't know what these people are going to do yet. Like, they haven't even started. We don't know if they'll be, if they'll get through Senate approval. We don't know if they're, so I'm going to not gloom and doom yet. I'm also in eat your popcorn mode. But I do disagree on her policy, because I'm someone that's really big on the robust public schools, and it's just a policy debate. But I recognize that due to my vote, this is one of the consequences I'm going to get. But I don't think he's going to tear down the Department of Education.
I just want to say
Why?
something
He loves
about
the poorly educated. Didn't you hear him?
He
said that
didn't do
when
it
he
in
was
his
running.
first
Can I just say something
Yes,
about
go ahead.
school choice?
Go ahead.
'Cause
Yeah.
I think it's really important. You know, when you hear about school choice, it's really connected to the voucher system. And I encourage everybody to read up on that. What happens, the Department of Education is responsible for $18.4 billion that fund high poverty K through 12 schools. Schools where kids are poor. Kids that grew up in neighborhoods like I grew up in the South Bronx projects. $15.5 billion from the Department of Education is used to cover the cost of children with disabilities, children that have dyslexia, children that have other learning needs, that learn differently. And what happens with vouchers, the studies show very clearly that they fund students who are already attending private schools. So people with money get those vouchers, use the vouchers to pay less for their private schools, and their kids go on to do well. Where do you get the money from vouchers? You pull those money from those poor schools, those poor schools.
I don't see it.
Let me just finish this. So wealthy families are overwhelmingly the recipients of school voucher tax credits. I'm not making this up. This has been studied.
Who's
In
that cited?
2020, a 2020 study found that only about half of states with voucher programs require teachers to have a bachelor's degree, require teachers to have training, require teachers to have licensing, require participating private schools.
If I may get in, just to make it a conversation.
But because I have children and because I looked at
I suppose none of the other ladies have children.
to public school. I believe you got to go to private school.
There is zero statistical
You got to go to
significance.
private school.
Because nobody can figure out what's being said here right now. No, there is no last thing right now. We're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back.
Yes.
Because you can't. What's happening is no one can hear anything anyone is saying. So
since when has this been a problem? So on today's episode of The View, the host dove into a discussion about Donald Trump's decision to appoint Linda McMahon as Secretary of Education. But instead of focusing on the substance, the conversation quickly derailed into this fiery debate about school vouchers with Sonny Hostin and Alyssa Griffin going head to head. Now, Sonny argued that vouchers actually hurt public schools by diverting taxpayer money to private institutions, claiming they overwhelmingly benefit wealthy families. And she insisted that there's no net positive for students who use these vouchers, and basically cited a 2020 study to back her point. Now, according to Sunny, a lot of the states with the state voucher programs, they lack proper teacher qualifications and oversight, resulting in poor educational outcomes. I think she said something like some of the teachers don't even necessarily have bachelor's degrees. But Alyssa wasn't about to let that slide. She jumped in, she cut in, pointing out Sunny's hypocrisy. How can she slam public schools when she herself attended one? Then Alyssa also kind of brought up the DC Opportunity Scholarship Program, which she worked on during her time in Congress, by essentially, she highlighted how the program increased graduation rates by 21%, showing that school choice can make a real difference. Now, that fact check didn't sit very well with Sunny, who then fired back, turning the whole debate into a personal feud and an attack, and then the tension only escalated from there as things just pretty much kept spiraling. Whoopi Goldberg jumps in to cut to a commercial. I mean, but the drama there didn't end. In fact, it kind of like just simmered throughout the whole show, throughout the entire show, with the host throwing these jabs at each other. And the discussion is just basically dissolving into chaos like we always see on The View, guys. Now, at this point, I think it's pretty clear. This was not a debate about policy. This is a clash of egos, fact checks, fiery tempers. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you guys appreciate the content. Definitely join us over in our Patreon community, link in the description down below if you guys want to take it a step further. I appreciate you guys.
Their parent company might spin them off and sell them. Is this just about survival?
It probably is about survival, but it's interesting that everything that they seem to accuse the president of and all of his affiliates for the last 10 years is actually what they're doing. And they're probably going to be afraid of the exposure that is revealed once we dive into transparency and what's been going on and who's really controlling this media thing. And now they realize, wow, we're not as powerful as we thought. We actually have no say.
Oh, hey, Don. Okay, so I'm sorry I called you a Nazi for years and like Hitler, but you want to grab coffee, maybe lunch, you know, like
at your house. Look, they have to admit they lied before they can go forth. Like, I'll never believe another word that they say.
That's right, guys. Morning Joe and Mika took a trip to Mar-a-Lago with their tails tucked promptly between their legs. The two top hosts for MSNBC are now admitting defeat, and they're now saving face. Besides saving their jobs, given that their entire network may be sold off. But having the two basically surrender to the right is not sitting well with some folks. In fact, there are some people within their own circle who are bashing Joe and Mika for seeing Trump in the first place. Now, I'm not sure if the two have talked about these other two hosts, but this is how they explain their actions. Watch.
We were given the opportunity to do just that. Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. In this meeting, President Trump was cheerful, he was upbeat, he seemed interested in finding common ground with Democrats on some of the most divisive issues. And for those asking why we would go speak to the president-elect during such fraught times, especially between us, I guess I would ask back, why wouldn't we?
Now, why wouldn't we? I mean, that's hilarious. I don't think that they watch their own show. Do these people not know what they've been calling Trump for like the last decade? It's no wonder their ratings are going down the drain. Their own hosts aren't even self-aware of the lies that they've been spreading throughout the years. Just this year, they've said that Trump is dividing the nation. But when they actually talk to the guy, they're saying that he's interested in finding common ground? Really? Something's amiss here. Is this their way of saying that they've lied to all of us about Trump for years?
The retweeting of neo-Nazi videos, Charlottesville. I mean, I could go on and on. What he said about majority black countries. That is tearing more at the fabric of America than attacks on the Twin Towers did. We rebuilt from that. We became stronger because of that. But this seems to me a far graver threat to the idea of America.
If Republicans continue this line of thinking, if they continue their support for Donald Trump, they needn't fool themselves. A second Trump administration would destroy the Department of Justice, would destroy the FBI.
This is not a reach. I could go back and talk about Nazi Germany, and I do it without any concerns whatsoever. And if people can't start drawing the parallels, well, you're just stupid, or you have your head in the sand, or you're one of them.
When you look at a Republican nominee, a potential Republican nominee that's talking about terminating the Constitution, he said, terminate the Constitution, arrest political opponents using the Justice Department, assassinate generals that weren't sufficiently politically loyal to him, saying that he was going to take the FCC and bring it in to the White House, and he would decide what networks were on and what networks were not on.
Yet, here we are seeing Joe and Mika on television. And there's probably a dozen reasons as to why they visited President Trump. But one of them is surely because they're bound to lose their current jobs. Either that or they're expecting viewers to tune out. Who wants to hear propaganda on TV nowadays, right? The only way to survive is to adapt, which means that they're probably going to cover the president in a much better light. Maybe with less propaganda and lies this time around.
Joe and I realize it's time to do something different. And that starts with not only talking about Donald Trump, but also talking with him.
As somebody close to Donald Trump told me this past weekend, this is a president who's not seeking re-election. So maybe, just maybe, now could be the time for both parties to get to work. I know, given the jarring headlines that we read every day, that may seem like a stretch.
Their change of mind is being seen as a betrayal of mainstream media because they're all supposed to be attacking Trump, not eating lunch with him. And who better to embody this outrage than the host of The View, right? Remember, these were their allies, but all of a sudden, it looks like this has changed.
Look, the bottom line is that America needs a free press that is willing to speak truth to power right now, more than ever. And I think that we have to be very clear-eyed when we think about the president-elect and cover the president-elect. And I don't think you need to sit down for 90 minutes at Mar-a-Lago and kiss his ring to be able to speak truth and to be able to cover a story. So maybe they're not journalists in the true sense. Maybe they're saying that they're opinion journalists. But we have to remember that Trump is the guy who ushered in the era of fake news. He is the guy who ushered in alternative facts. He is the guy who attacked 3 black female journalists. He's the guy that revoked Jim Acosta's press credentials for asking him a question. And so I think that this president-elect, I hate to say it, would like nothing more than to have only Fox News cover him, would like nothing more than a state-sponsored media. And I don't think he can be trusted in the way that other presidents can be trusted. This is an aberration.
I would really like to know how Sunny feels about the coverage of this year's presidential election, especially if we're talking about CBS, MSNBC, ABC, CNN. I wonder if she would see anything wrong with the reports that they've released, especially when it comes to Trump. Because we all know almost every single network was against Trump this year. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of us are now wise to the lies that these shows tried to fool us into believing. And Alyssa corrected Sunny by saying that Trump didn't do as much of Fox News as she'd like to believe. He did go on multiple podcasts and reach millions of voters with his voice, which is adding yet another nail in the coffin for legacy media. But Sunny can tell herself anything she wants so that she can sleep better at night. Although she and her other co-hosts, they have to wake up to the reality that legacy media is on its way down, and they're not the main source of news anymore. Luckily for them, the president is fair. According to him, in order to make America great again, it is important, if not vital, to have a free, fair, and open media or press. So he's not going to censor mainstream media, even though they've done it to him for years. And he's showing a willingness to work with these people despite their differences. This is amazing. I'll be honest with you. I'd be personally pissed off. I'd be ready to hit back. I'm just saying. Don't make me president. But it's kind of odd because these shows have said that Trump would be a dictator. Y'all remember that, right? Giving the press freedom doesn't really match that concept of being a dictator, does it? Right? What do y'all think?
Obviously, Elon Musk has played a huge part. Obviously, he paid it $44 billion. Do you see that as a good investment in the future of free speech?
Well, as an investment, it wasn't a good investment because it's valued now at 11 to 12 billion. But that doesn't matter. What he did do is keep alive the concept of free speech, because in a democracy, you're always dealing with 2.5% lunatic fringe. The cost of freedom of speech is the lunatic fringe. The minute you try and shut down the lunatic fringe, you're moving away from the concept freedom of speech. Everybody has a voice. You may not like what they say, but because they're part of the narrative, that is the core and the DNA of democracy. And so many ideas get tested, some get thrown out. And when you try and change that, again, the system self-corrects, and that's what happened here. So it's a very divided country now. We are going to have a new president with a full mandate. I mean, it looks like he's going to win the Senate and the House and the presidency. You can get a lot done for the first 2 years when you control everything. And so that's what's going to happen.
And Kara Swisher is one of the biggest haters so far, so this really isn't much of a surprise to me. It's also not surprising that they would use fear-mongering to try and sway the opinion of the people. In a CNN write-up, the network highlighted Elon Musk's goal of major cuts to government spending. Watch.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're being taxed. You're being taxed. All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, it either becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
Now, according to CNN, Elon Musk is going to treat the federal government just like Twitter, cutting out an insane amount of manpower on day one, something that hasn't always produced the greatest of results. They highlighted Elon Musk's interview of Governor Ron DeSantis and President-elect Trump on X. Both interviews experienced a lot of technical issues, although that could possibly be explained by the sheer volume of people that try to enter the X spaces that they opened up for them. But, here's the thing. I use X on a daily basis. I'm always reading updates and news from different accounts on there. I haven't noticed what CNN is talking about because they're saying that X is unstable when it's one of the best social media apps out there. In fact, if Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or any other platform crashes, people tend to rush to X to check if the app is down. So to say that X is janky, that would be a stretch. But the hate for these men, it runs deep within left-wing media, guys. None of them exemplifying this anger better than Joy Reid. Watch.
Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, great, we're going to get to hear his voice again for however many years till he gets fired. They're going to lead something called the Department of Government Efficiency. They're supposed to now be in charge of cutting the budget, which is normally the job of the House of Representatives. You served in the House. Doesn't the House have to be involved some way in creating a new government agency, or can Trump just whip one up on Twitter?
No, Joy, that's right. I think Donald Trump's just handing out candy right now to his friends and family. Congress is required to establish federal departments to define the jurisdiction, to decide how it's appointed. Presidents can certainly appoint aides and non-congressional positions, but there will not be a Department of Government Efficiency without Congress, which actually raises the question, does Congress now just rubber stamp that in one of its next appropriations bill? And here's what it's going to be. This is your Project 2025 department.
Yes.
The Department of Government Efficiency by Ramaswamy and Elon, that's your Project 2025 department. Correct. Without the bad impressions that Heritage created during the campaign trail.
Are they still talking about Project 2025? That thing should have been dead and buried when their campaign fizzled during the presidential election. And are they saying that they don't want an efficient government? Like, why would you be trying to promote that unless you actually have a government job? A government that's not completely focused on spending our money like it's nothing? Because that's the message that we're hearing from legacy media. And I guess they're pulling out all the stops since MSNBC is probably going to be sold off soon. It'll be funny if Elon Musk decides to buy them too, wouldn't it? But what are your thoughts on Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy leading the charge on government efficiency? Are they? Boy, guys, we have a lot to talk about today. So Megyn Kelly recently voiced her frustrations about the perceived hypocrisy of the Democratic leadership in Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin, he's made a concerning change to Russia's military doctrine concerning the ongoing conflict over in the Ukraine. Then, of course, we got former President Donald Trump's political influences continuing to grow, and it's scaring the left, with his nominees impressing Republicans and pissing off a lot of these Democrats. I'm getting alerts like constantly on my phone, new appointees from Donald Trump. But in legal news, Trump is now seeing a lot of progress as a lot of his high profile cases against him are finally being dismissed. Comment down below if you guys are happy to hear about Donald Trump's cases finally getting dismissed, guys. We're also talking about the hush money case that took place over in New York with DA Alvin Bragg, Judge Juan Merchan. So a court recently delayed the sentencing originally set for November 26th. However, New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg and Attorney General Letitia James, they're determined to keep pursuing legal actions against Donald Trump, even though a lot of critics are arguing that this approach completely violates all the norms around peaceful transfers of power. But we're talking about DA Alvin Bragg here, guys. We're talking about Letitia James. They've stated that they're basically just going to continue their efforts against Trump, regardless of the legal or even the traditional implications. Unbelievable. Now, this legal reprieve is welcome news for Donald Trump, who's faced numerous court battles. We've covered most, if not all of those court battles right here on this channel. And I think, honestly, this is why a lot of people have decided to subscribe to the channel, have joined us, and have helped the channel to grow so much over the past couple of years. Also, I want to thank you guys for hitting the like button and for sharing these videos. It really does help us to get this information out there. But guys, as a sitting president, Trump would have certain legal protections. We know this, including immunity from prosecution, ensuring that, he could focus on his presidential duties without any kind of distractions. While some of his detractors have kind of joked about him serving as president from a jail cell, that's not going to happen. The legal safeguards are meant to prevent these kind of scenarios from ever happening. Now, one of these issues, key issues, as a matter of fact, is Trump's controversial pick of Attorney General Matt Gaetz. Now, Matt Gaetz, he's been struggling to gain enough Senate votes for confirmation. A lot of the senators are hesitant to, regarding the past sexual misconduct allegations against Gaetz, they were ultimately investigated by the Department of Justice years ago. And although Attorney General Merrick Garland, he found no evidence related to Matt Gaetz, they ended up dropping the case. But some lawmakers now, they're even pushing to try to revisit findings from a House Ethics Committee report before making a decision. And I personally think that they're so afraid of Matt Gaetz taking this particular role that they want to try and take him down, because if he gets into that position, they know that they're toast. But of course, Trump's not backing down. He's personally lobbying senators to support Matt Gaetz, viewing him as a strong, aggressive candidate for the attorney general role. Matt Gaetz supporters, including conservative activist Charlie Kirk, they're arguing that, hey, the allegations are lacking evidence, or at least credible evidence, right? And then, of course, Charlie Kirk, he even questioned the validity of anonymous witnesses on a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, stating that I've had enough of this. So, of course, the situation remains tense. A lot of strong opinions on both sides of the aisle, the left, conservatives, regarding Matt Gaetz' confirmation, and of course, the broader implications of Trump's political and legal battles. But I mean, when you look at the allegations against Matt Gaetz, guys, outlined in a so-called House ethics report, they drew a lot of significant criticism. In fact, this particular report, it revisits a lot of the claims that were previously investigated, but ultimately dropped, key word being dropped, by the Department of Justice due to their lack of credibility. Charlie Kirk, he's arguing that these allegations are flimsy. They're designed to damage Matt Gaetz' reputation, especially now that he's Donald Trump's pick for attorney general. So, I mean, for a lot of you guys who don't necessarily know why all this drama kind of got started, basically years ago, the DOJ investigated claims that Matt Gaetz had inappropriate relationships or inappropriate relations with a minor. However, the DOJ, even under President Joe Biden, dropped the case because the allegations depended on two witnesses with serious credibility problems. Now, Charlie Kirk, he did a good job highlighting that one of the main witnesses Joel Greenberg, he's a former politician and convicted felon with a long track record, okay? Long history of criminal behavior. Greenberg was once a friend of Matt Gaetz, but their relationship went sour after Matt Gaetz refused to help Greenberg secure a pardon from former President Donald Trump. So now Joel Greenberg reportedly made these crazy accusations as part of a plea deal. Now, according to Charlie Kirk, a jail inmate who shared a cell with Greenberg claimed that Greenberg admitted that the allegations against Gaetz were lies. They were lies. The inmate also alleged that Greenberg told him that the minor involved, which is now an adult, would be willing to lie for money. Crazy, crazy. I hate that in our country, there's minimal punishment for false accusations. It really sucks. Anyway, Charlie Kirk suggests that there are text messages showing Greenberg paying the minor's bills, further casting doubt on his credibility. Now, of course, Greenberg himself admitted to having inappropriate relations with the same minor. Now, his claim against Matt Gaetz is that they both paid the minor for such relations, believing that she was 19. However, the DOJ found no conclusive evidence to support these claims, which is exactly why the case was dropped when Merrick Garland's tenure as Attorney General. Or during Merrick Garland's tenure as Attorney General. So that's the whole backstory on that. But check this out, guys. So Charlie Gaetz questions why Merrick Garland, who was aggressively pursuing cases against Donald Trump and his associates, why he would suddenly drop the investigation into Matt Gaetz. Like, if it was legit, why would you do that, right? So Charlie Kirk speculates that the case only resurfaced because Gaetz is now Trump's Attorney General pick and might investigate Garland in the future. Now, ultimately, guys, the situation totally hinges on who you believe. I don't know who you believe. You guys let me know who you believe in the comments, guys. But Joel Greenberg's credibility is now in question due to his criminal record. It's also in question due to his history of making false accusations. Let's not also forget about the circumstances under which he turned on Matt Gaetz. They used to be friends. Now they're not, because Matt Gaetz wouldn't talk to Trump for him to get him pardoned. It's kind of messed up, though. Anyway, so Charlie Kirk and others supporting Gaetz argue that the case lacks merit and it was only revived due to damage that Gaetz did politically. Now, the public is left to decide ultimately at this point whether the allegations are genuine or just part of a broader political smear campaign, which we've seen so much of attempted on Donald Trump. And in a very surprising twist, guys, Joe Scarborough and Micah Brzezinski, two of MSNBC's very outspoken critics of Donald Trump, have reportedly, let's just say that they've softened their stance. I know we talked about this not too long ago, but it definitely needs to be talked about just a little bit more as new details have come out. Despite years of harshly criticizing Trump, calling him names like Hitler and referring to his supporters as Nazis and whatnot, Joe and Mika, they recently flew to Florida for a private meeting with Donald Trump at his Mar-a-Lago resort. Now, guys, this meeting reportedly focused on some contentious topics, talking about abortion, mass deportation, political retribution against opponents, and Trump's criticism of the media. So this change in their tone caught a lot of people off guard, particularly given Joe Scarborough's history with Donald Trump. Now, of course, Joe Scarborough is now, and he's always been a staunch Democrat, guys. He was once a Republican and a big Trump supporter. Now, this is just, it blows my mind to see people literally just do 180s like that. Joe Scarborough used to be a Republican and a big-time Trump supporter. It's hard to believe, right? So anyway, the rift between them appears to have started when Donald Trump considered Scarborough for the role of vice president during his 2016 campaign, but he ultimately chose Mike Pence instead. So I don't know. Anyway, according to the reports, Trump's decision to go with Mike Pence, this came at the urging of Chris Christie, who's very close ally at the time. So Chris Christie, he advised Trump to pick Pence, arguing that Pence would appeal to the voters, or at least the white voters, and Christian conservatives due to his calm demeanor and traditional values. Now, following this particular decision, Joe Scarborough felt a little slighted and distanced himself from Trump, eventually becoming one of his harshest critics. Basically, he got a little salty. And so basically a similar situation reportedly occurred with billionaire Mark Cuban. So Mark Cuban was rumored to have been in line for a role within Trump's first administration, but he got passed over. The thing is Mark Cuban, I don't really trust the guy, and I don't think Donald Trump did either. But anyway, after being left out, Cuban also became an outspoken critic of Trump and ultimately shifted towards the Democratic Party. I think it was a good call for Trump because any global crisis. Now, Trump has previously advocated for de-escalation and diplomacy, but the escalating situation between Ukraine, Russia, and NATO nations, it just further complicates the path going forward. So I'm going to keep an eye on all these developments, as they continue to unfold. We got commentators like Megyn Kelly continuing to share very strong opinions about the media, political figures, and a lot of the decisions that are shaping the future of the U.S. and the world. But I think that her remarks plus Trump's strategic political moves definitely highlights the deep division that's taking place in the political landscape right now. But let me know your thoughts, guys. What do you think about this? If you haven't already, do your boy a favor, hit the like button for the video, subscribe to the channel. Check out this video here coming up next, and I'm going to see you guys on the next one.